On the Monday Morning Quarterback, NorthJerseySports.com's original multimedia series talking all things football across North Jersey. This is Season 5, Episode 2, as we wade a little bit deeper into the local high school sports scene. I am Corey Doviak, being joined by my two trusty North Jersey football insiders, starting with the venerable one. He is Jimmy Avatabile. What's up, Jimmy?
What's up, Thor?
Good to hear your voice. We got a lot of football to talk about. And joining us from the land of 1,000 lakes, 1,500 miles away from the world headquarters of NorthJerseySports.com, remotely, he is the head Husky, Dumont's #1 fan, Brian Carr. What's going on, Brian?
Hey, all's good. A little chilly and rainy up here today, but it's great being up here learning and hearing about the Gophers.
Now,
and by the way, a quick note. I last night had dinner right across the street from where Joe Mauer played high school ball, right here in St. Paul, Minnesota.
That's a pretty good one. Now, have do you read any of the local stuff there? What's the high school sports scene like in Minnesota, I wonder?
You know what? I've been so busy working, I haven't got a chance. I hear a lot on the radio talking about the weak Vikings and also the Gophers not winning, a Big Ten championship in football for a long time. So I was pretty busy working. We're getting in targets up here, so it's a lot of work, and this is their home market. So I'll have to pick it up tonight and try to look at something.
Yes. All right. Get back to us on that next week. But we got plenty to talk about on the local high school football scene here, and we will do it tonight with two premier coaches, really, in Bergen County. We're going to talk to Drew Gibbs, whose team bounced back from a rough loss in the opening week to Wayne Hills. Ramapo beat Demarest this past Friday night, 62-35. I think the most points scored since 2003, I saw somewhere. So we'll get Coach Gibbs' thoughts on the bounce-back win, a good one. And then we're going to talk to a guy who's got it really cooking on the Group 1 level. New Milford head coach Billy Wilde is going to join us. His team with an impressive 35-6 win over St. Mary, the long-established power down there in the, the Group 1 section that used to be the, what was that, the BCSL National Division, now part of the NJIC. So, they went to a state final last year, got close, and then just reloaded, and they're at it again. So it's going to be good to talk to Billy Wilde. But before we get to those two guys, let's just do a little whip around here, some of the other games of interest from last week in North Jersey. And, Jimmy, let's start with you, because I know Friday night you were out at Riverdale, the defending North 1 Group 3 state sectional champion. They had a big win over Wayne Valley. Wayne Valley played one of the classic state finals of all time last year at Giant Stadium, came up on the short end against Wayne Hills, struggled a little bit out of the gate this year. What'd you see there? Probably a good time to see Riverdale and Wayne Valley just to get a good read on what's going on there early this season.
Yeah, you mentioned Wayne Valley. We'll start there. They lost a tremendous amount of seniors last year, and Coach Roger Cutlar, they're a little bit struggling right now, playing a lot of underclassmen, and it is very, very evident they're 0-3. I wanted to get a good look at Riverdale. They are playing a very big game for them this Saturday at Westwood, which is a premier matchup in Bergen County this weekend. But you talk about Riverdale and the kid, Mr. Estevez. I don't know how many more times we can mention him and how good a football player is. I mean, you watch Riverdale, they're very, very well coached as always. With, Coach Nimkus, we know that's going to happen. But from the minute he walks on the team or runs on the field, you can tell that he just has it. Not a cockiness, but a confidence. His team really rallies around them, and whenever they're in a tough situation, he always finds a way to get them out of it. And I think they become a very, very dangerous team with him. And, the rest of that team is pretty inexperienced. So I think as time goes by, they're going to get better and better around him, and they're going to be super dangerous and certainly a threat to repeat as state champs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, Dave Estevez I've been writing about forever now because he's the rare three-sport standout, starting shortstop in baseball on the perennial powerhouse, public school powerhouse that is the Riverdale baseball team. They had a great run last year in basketball, too. He was a big part of that, got to a state sectional final against Teaneck, and, of course, he led them to a state championship in football. So, he's a good story, not only because he's a good athlete, but also because he's a throwback to the days when it seemed like everybody played three sports. That doesn't happen too often anymore. And for a kid of that ability in, pick whatever sport, baseball, football, whatever, he could specialize and chooses not to. So I think that's great. As I mentioned, I was at Ramapo, Denver, so we'll talk more about it with Drew Gibbs a little bit later on, so I don't want to get too in-depth into that. But Ramapo, A.J. Wingfield, the quarterback, he's a threat from anywhere on the field and really just had his way with the Demarest defense. He ran for 4 touchdowns, threw for another one. He's a junior, takes over the starting job full-time this year, and it looks like Ramapo, no surprise, back to their old tricks and going to make another run at the Meadowlands for sure. Brian Carr was out of town last week, so a rare weekend for you, Bri, where you don't see a game live, but I did notice you were all over the Twitter. Anything catch your eye from the week that was in North Jersey football?
There were a couple ones. By the way, David Estevez, I did catch that he had like 350 yards in offense as well as 5 TDs. You guys just mentioned him. The one that I noticed, because I'm getting ready for this weekend with Old Tappan, is Wayne Hills came back from an early loss opening game and they won 35-14 over a good Roxbury team. They held Roxbury down pretty good, and so that should be a good matchup coming up with Old Tappan this week after that. So I was kind of watching that. And obviously right into Old Tappan, I think you saw some of that. I was following Old Tappan, and they just rolled over PV, Pascack Valley. Looks like 49-7, and they gave up the last score to the JV, I think. So that should be a really good matchup coming up this week. And then a couple of the Catholics, not to jump around too much here, but the Catholics, I happen to watch BC on over the web, and BC, I'm sorry, got whooped out at Mater Dei out in California. It was really something else. They weren't even close. So that kind of stood out to me as a couple big games that I was really following without actually getting to a game.
Yes, we'll talk about the parochials after we do the interviews that we have for tonight, because it is kind of interesting. I'm just going to mention a few more public school games. Ridgewood, 21-20, they're 2-0. Listen, give Paramus credit. They took one on the chin opening week. They bounced back and took Ridgewood into overtime. Ridgewood gets out of there with a 21-20 win. Westwood, more of the same, 59-29 over Pascack Hills in advance of their showdown this week, as Jimmy mentioned, with Riverdale. Englewood off to a 2-0 start, 51-22 over Tenafly. It's interesting for Englewood here. Now they got Ramsey and Paramus coming up, and it's going to be, to see where they stand here, because I know there's a lot, my wife being a teacher in the school district, I know there's a lot of excitement around the program. Sean O'Connor, the head coach, doing a real good job of organization, and the Maroon Raiders are relevant again, at least they are for 2 weeks in the season. Brian, I know we have an interview that you taped later with one of your favorite Huskies, the new Ryan Botto. Your brand new Ryan Botto this year is Stephen Capone from Dumont. We'll play that taped interview later, but you had to be happy with the Huskies. The first win under Ricky Bird, right. Now 1-1 on the season.
Right. Hey, we asked Coach Bird to be on the call, which I kind of liked that he didn't want to do the call. His thoughts were that he wants to establish themselves a little bit more, which is, I think, kind of humbling, because Richie is very aggressive, kind of somewhat cocky at times. So, but it's good that, I know I talked to him when he was an assistant, and he didn't want to talk then. He says, wait until I'm a head coach. So, but we'll get him down the road. They had a couple good guys did very well. They're running backs. He had 3 TDs in the first half. I forget his last name. It's Ryan with a C. It's a long last name, hard to describe. So, but Steven is a stat stuffer, and we talked to him in the interview, and he impressed me last year. I saw some video on him. That's what caught my eye, and I've been watching him ever since. And he always stands out. Leader now as the captain, so we'll talk to him later. But, good stuff.
Jimmy, how much Dumont video have you been watching?
Not a lot, to be honest with you. Not that I'm not interested, not that I'm not rooting for him, but, I would just like to mention 3 schools that I think have just started out in fantastic fashion. You talk about Manchester.
Yep.
Manchester, 2-0 with wins over Lodi and Glen Rock, and they're 2-0 for the first time since 1997.
Our very own Richie Ballgame Barton reporting on that game this past week.
Yes, he did. The second team is obviously Wallington, a big win over Woodridge opening night, and they beat Weehawken convincingly. They're looking for their first winning season. Coach Bovell since their North One Group Championship in 2010. So they're well on their way. And then the third one, the Cavos of Emerson, going down Route 17 and beating the Beckton team that had high hopes going into the season 28-13. So it's nice to see three small schools. We always talk about small schools struggling with enrollment, players, and everything else. It's nice to see these three teams, starting off the season really, really good.
No doubt. And as you mentioned, Wallington had beaten Woodridge on opening day. Woodridge bounced back with a nice 31-0 win over Pagoda. Cresskill, again, last week they scored 7 points and won. This week they scored 17 points and won. So 2-0 there. They're doing it defensively with a 17-0 win over Secaucus. They've played 2 games. They've given up 6 points. So more of the same for Cresskill. Rutherford also 2-0 with a 27-19 win over Lodi this past week. And Jimmy, you brought up the 2010 Wallington North 1 Group 1 state final. And listen, we always talk about how MetLife Stadium, Mike Quick was on the show last week talking about it, how it's impersonal, it's too big. Even when you got a lot of people there, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of people there. The lone exception to that was that 2010 final when Wallington won the state championship. The entire town of Wallington was in the stands there, and that may be the best atmosphere I ever experienced at MetLife Stadium. Back then Giant Stadium, I guess, but that was crazy.
I think you're 100% right. I mean, if you were a burglar that night, Wallington was the spot to be in, because I don't think there was anybody in the town, during the time the game was played. And the other one I remember, believe it or not, a Group 1 game also was when Pagoda and Coach Sabella beat Mountain Lakes at Giant Stadium. The whole town of Pagoda was there.
That's true.
So, it's nice to see the small communities get together and support their teams.
No doubt about it. All right, let's move on to the interview portion of tonight's show as we welcome in our first guest of the evening here on the Monday Morning Quarterback. He is Ramapo head coach Drew Gibbs. Coach, thanks for joining us on the Monday Morning Quarterback.
My pleasure, Corey. How's everybody doing?
We're doing good. And listen, so are the Green Raiders. But first of all, I do, now that I got you on the line here, and I have a bone to pick with you, if you don't mind.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I went to the Old Tappan game on Saturday, and, part of my job is interaction with the public. I mean, I'm a journalist. I like to report news. I like to disseminate information, and sometimes I get some negative feedback. It's understandable. It's part of the game. I'm a grown man with a thick skin. But as I'm walking down the sidelines at Pascack Valley High School the other day, I hear from the crowd on the other side of the fence somebody yelling, "Hey, you can't leave a game early. You can't leave." I look over. There's a guy in a Ramapo shirt, looks like a well-respected head coach. Were you heckling the press on Saturday?
Absolutely. Absolutely heckling the press.
Yeah, I deserved it, too. I left early.
I apologize for making the game run so late on Friday night. What can we do?
Coach, I'm getting to be an old man. I can't put in the full shift anymore, It got to be 10 o'clock. I was calculating my ride home. I had a boogie. But anyway, all that being said, and all kidding aside, that was a nice way to bounce back from a disappointing first week, obviously. You got in, the offense was rolling 62 points against Demarest. You had to be happy with your kids' effort there.
Absolutely. It was, the week before was rough. We're up 21-0, and to lose that game, and that's a big rivalry game for us. Our kids were hurt after the opener, but I'm really proud of them the way they bounced back, and they had a great week of practice. And when we got ahead again against Demarest, and gave up a touchdown against them, we didn't lose our cool. The kids battled for 4 quarters, and again, really proud of the fact that they've been resilient so far.
Yes, Jimmy, you had an interesting point when we were talking off the air, so why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, Coach, a quick question as far as the opener, and I don't want to really mention that much, obviously, it was a tough loss, but how much do you think the fact that it was your first game out of the box, and Wayne Hills had already played a game, even though they had lost to the team from Ohio, How much do you think that attributed to you guys jumping out early and not being able to hold on?
You know what? I don't really think that was much of a factor. We play a very competitive scrimmage schedule. You know, we game scrimmage with Ridgewood the week before and Seton Hall the week before that, and we've seen Immaculata in the preseason, and you know, so I think our kids were prepared. You know, we made a lot of mistakes in the third quarter and let Wayne Hills right back in the game, and they made some plays. And you know, what I was proud of about in that game was we let it get away from us, and then we came back. We drove the ball down. We got a field goal. We got a stop. We blocked one of their field goals. You know, we put ourselves in position to win late, and they made a couple plays and we didn't. So, you know, I think I was proud again of our kids' resiliency in that game, despite the fact we let the lead slip away the way we did.
Yeah, and then, you know, you could say after losing that tough one, you know, to pick your kids back up probably was not a hard job. I mean, I was at the Demarest game last year. That was another shootout. You guys came up on the short end of that stick. So, you know, you could say, hey, guys, we could be staring at 0-2 here. You know, what was the what your motivational tactics going into that one, if you really used any?
You know, we buried the first game. It was a great game to be a part of, you know, except for the final score.
Right.
Boy, Ramapo, Wayne Hills, battling back and forth. I mean, it was a tremendous night.
Yeah.
And so we tried to focus on all the positives as opposed to the negatives, and just, you know, challenge them to get a little bit better during the week of practice. You know, because we thought that was all it's going to take is, you know, hey, 10 or 12 weeks here of getting a little bit better every week. We're in position to do what our ultimate goal is.
Yeah, and listen, with all the changes in high school football, one of the bad ones is that Ramapo and Wayne Hills were playing in week 1. I mean, that was a great game later in the season. I used to, you know, I've covered that one many times. It would have been better if we could have saved that one for later. But, you know, that's beyond your control. So the one guy I want to talk to you about is your brand new starting quarterback here, A.J. Wingfield. I've known him as a little kid. I remember him running around the fields there with his dad, well-known local official, and, you know, the Andy Wingfield's son. AJ was great for you on Friday night. 4 touchdowns rushing, another one throwing, and really seemed to be in command of your offense.
Yeah, we are real excited about AJ. He's got tremendous upside here. You know, I think he's got 7 rushing touchdowns in 2 games as a first-year starter and as a junior. So, you know, he can do it all. He can run it. He can throw it. He's got that. Whatever it is, he's got it. You know, that ability to manage the game, that ability not to get overwhelmed in the big spot. You know, I'm real excited about his future in our program and what he's done so far.
Yeah. Brian, you got one for the coach?
Hey, Coach. Yeah, AJ really stands out in all the stats. I was just wondering what you thought was one of your most improved players. You know, I see Anthony Valvano had a good game on defense. What are your other guys you think are surprising you in their success so far this year?
Yeah, you know, one of the things about our football team at times, you know, we've had 8 juniors on the field at one time, you know, in certain spots on defense. In fact, all 4 of our linebackers in our 3-4 defense, they're all juniors. Mike O'Connor and Matt Wingfield as outside linebackers, and you mentioned Anthony Valvano, and then Anthony Sargenti at inside linebacker. So we're really proud of the way those guys have stepped up, and they were actually all in the 2 deep as sophomores. So they come in they came into the year with a little experience, haven't gotten a lot of practice time, and I think that group is playing particularly well. And then I've really been pleasantly surprised with our offensive line. You know, a bunch of new starters there. Those guys have really dominated. You know, we've got some seniors, Mark Shafar, Joe Mosca, Michael Hughes. Those guys are seniors who all played a little bit last year. And then senior offensive tackle Chris Regan. It's his first year as a starter, and junior center Grant Coutinho. Those guys, I think we counted 15 pancake blocks in the Demarest game where they put the Demarest defensive lineman on his back.
And Demarest has some big defensive linemen.
They certainly do, yes.
Yeah, Jimmy, you got another one? Okay.
Yeah, Coach. You know, you mentioned the offense the other night. I mean, we were at your Ridgewood scrimmage for the first half, and it seems like you're running a lot of our, run pass option for him. You must have a tremendous amount of confidence in him to manage the game.
Yeah, he does a tremendous job. It's his third year in the system. We kind of run this offensive system from the freshman on up, and it's a lot of decision making on the quarterback. Just about every play he's got a run option, a pass option, could be a handoff or keep option. So we do have a lot of confidence in AJ, and his execution so far in the preseason and during the first couple of games has been excellent.
I'm noticing a pattern here with NorthJerseySports.com personnel leaving at halftime of Ramapo games. But how about this? A chance to make some headway here, really. 1-1 right now at Snyder, Pascack Valley at home, at Englewood, Paramus at home, and then leading up to the October 20th game at Riverdale here. But a chance. Listen, I know you a long time. I know you're not taking anybody lightly, and I know you're not going to say we're about to go on a 4-game winning streak here. But a good chance to make some headway, pick up some power points. Just talk about this stretch of the season coming up.
The most important thing for our players to understand is that you have to get better every week during the season. Focusing on PowerPoints, I don't even worry about PowerPoints. Hey, if we get, all we want to do is get in. If we get in, we got it. We feel we've got a chance. And our ultimate goal is to win the state championship, which it is. Our football team has to improve every single week, and that's kind of been the mantra around our place for a long time, and it's worked out for us. So that's really, we had that discussion today with the players. It's just, hey, our job this week. Obviously we want to beat Snyder on Friday night, but we have to be a better football team. Next Monday than we were today. So that gets done during the practice week.
Last one, and then we'll let you out of here. I know your beloved Giants have already kicked off in their Monday night football contest here as we tape this. So last one I'll ask you is, everybody wants to know, what's the secret? I mean, this program, Mike Miello before you just picked up the mantle and kept running. You got good numbers, you got good turnout, you got everything. Tell everybody how they can build a Ramapo. Give us all your secrets right now.
All the secrets, huh? Wow. Well, we've got 3 great communities, outstanding junior football programs where, the kids learn the fundamentals and they learn to enjoy the game. And they come to us. And, the one thing that I always ask our junior football coaches to do is, hey, kids leave your program, they should love playing football. They should understand the commitment it takes to be a football player. And then if they can learn to block and tackle as 7th and 8th graders, that would be great. But, those 2 things, just the fact that they love the game and they're committed to what it takes to get good and to improve as a player, I think those are a couple of the important things. We have a very supportive community. I have an outstanding coaching staff, a bunch of guys that, love the game, love the kids, and just do a tremendous job. And we've had the same staff together now for about 6 years. So I think we just we're very fortunate in the situation that we have, and we work hard to keep it going.
That was a good 3-minute answer, and without answering anything, you gave away no secrets.
Hey, one more.
Other than hard work, I don't know if there are any secrets in this game other than working your tail off, 365 days a year and working hard.
Yeah, that is what it takes nowadays. Bri, you wanted to jump in one last one? What'd you say?
Yeah. Hey, Coach, right off Corey's question here about how do you get a successful program, why don't you tell us a little bit about one of your successes who's on the field now? Chris Hogan for the Patriots seems to be really doing very well.
Yeah.
Oh, obviously, Chris, the fact that he made it to the NFL was outstanding for him, and his road to the NFL is well documented. We're really proud of Chris, and another guy with it. You have to have athletic talent, obviously, to play in the NFL, but just a tremendous work ethic, a tremendous focus, tremendous student of the game, and he fortunately ended up in the perfect place for him, with the New England Patriots, because they really know how to use a guy like Chris and a guy who's multi-talented like that. And so we're really happy and proud of him. And, we're very fortunate. We got a lot of guys playing at the next level. It's great to have guys playing in the NFL, but but we got a ton of guys playing Division III football and a couple guys at the Division I level. So it's, one of my favorite things to do now. It used to be on a Sunday night, but now this stuff gets out there on the internet so quickly. I sit down on the couch on a Saturday afternoon and I get to follow all our alumni who are playing at the various colleges around the country.
Except this past Saturday afternoon when you were out heckling the local press. But we'll let that one pass. Drew Gibbs, head coach
I have time for both. I always have time to heckle you, Corey, and get everything else done as well.
Yes, you're very good at it. Drew Gibbs, the head coach of the Ramapo Green Raiders. Thanks for coming on the Monday Morning Quarterback, and we'll keep tabs on you. We'll be calling you again.
Great, fellas. Have a great night. Appreciate it.
All right, interesting stuff there with Ramapo head coach Drew Gibbs, and now we're going to move on to a guy having tremendous success at the Group 1 level as we welcome in New Milford head coach Billy Wilde. He's kind enough to join us here on the Monday Morning Quarterback. Coach, how's it going with your 2-0 start here?
Hey, so far we're 2-0. We're doing well. Things are nice. We're playing good football, and it's exciting again.
Yeah, again, meaning, just a repeat of last year. You got some new guys in new places, but, Jimmy and I had this conversation. I remember, I don't know if we did it on the air or maybe it was at MetLife Stadium when we were talking, but I remember having the distinct conversation with Jimmy about how New Milford, a Group 1 program, runs itself, well, a credit to you and your coaching staff, obviously, as a bigger program. I mean, you guys, you're getting them in front of college coaches, organized, everything else. Just talk about, before we get into the specifics of this start, is some of the challenges that you face at Group 1 level trying to do those things, and then how you guys have been able to overcome them. Whether you win a state championship or not, you guys are in it year after year. You're always in the mix. It's never an easy out when you go to New Milford. So, just talk about the running of this program and how you built it.
Well, the first thing when I came over here was, we had to get control of the junior football league, our town junior football league. We had to figure out what was going on down there and make sure that we could, they could be on the same page as the high school program, So we did that. We have that's a great program. Our junior football league produces some great players. Then we have to we're trying to get a freshman team every year. So my 13 years coaching, there's only been 1 year in the 13 years we haven't had a full freshman roster and team. I have plenty of coaches. Kids, they want to go to these Catholic schools, these non-private schools, and play. And if you say you don't have a freshman program, that's a big turnoff. So we always have a freshman team. We get them 8 games. We give them their own nights, their own uniforms, their own coaches, and we give them, we treat them with a lot of respect. So that helps because now our numbers are solid every year. And then we have a JV program, then we have a varsity program. So we have 3 levels. We have 70 football players in our program, freshmen through seniors, for a Group 1 school. And I'm very proud of that. And, we're winning on all levels, which is successful, and I'm proud of that too. So, and the other part of it is, we made a commitment to the families. We said, listen, you come to the Milford High School. Number 1, you're going to get an education. Number 2, we're going to get you in front of the colleges. Nowadays with the internet and, things are a little different, than they were 15 years ago. So, the same guy that has to go to see Bergen Catholic High School, his route is New Milford High School. All they want to do, they want to know where the kids are. Are they, if I got a 6'3" kid, you better believe they're coming to New Milford High School to check him out. Now, if he can't play, they're going to figure that out. But, they're coming to see the kid. And we've had Notre Dame, we've had Clemson, we've had everybody in Harvard. I mean, we have them all in New Milford High School. So that's a big, that's a big plus for us in our program, and the parents see that. And, and so, we keep the top character kids home. And there's a reason why, we're going to the state finals and we're having very successful seasons.
No doubt about it, bucking the trend and doing it emphatically. Jimmy, and you've picked up a very big fan along the way here because Jimmy Avitabile started texting me last week, hey, I'm going to New Milford this weekend. Why don't you come with me? So, Jimmy, you did go. Talk to the coach about what you saw.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned off the air that, the first half was a struggle against St. Mary's. I watched St. Mary's against Hasbrook Heights, and they were a very big team offensively and defensively, and they had a very good tailback. And they seemed to be dominating the game for about a quarter and a half, and I think you stopped them on a fourth down inside your 10-yard line, which kind of set the momentum for you, and you went in and scored before the half to make it 7-6. I think that was a huge shift in momentum, and you came out in the second half and played, old-fashioned Milford football where you ran the ball down their throat. And you talk about your JV program and your freshman program, and you lose a tremendous running back, all-county running back for 2 years in Christian Correa, and now you unleash Barton Nativo. He all he does the other day is carries the ball 19 times for 220 yards and 5 touchdowns. So there's where you're proving that the development of a freshman program and a JV program just continues to feed your program.
Yeah, if you look at all the schools, the Group 1 schools, the Group 2, the smaller level schools, the Cresskill, the Hasbrouckites, the Glenton Rocks, they all have 3 programs for years, and they're all successful.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that was one of the first things we had to make sure. We had to make sure our program was running like those guys. And there's no, you look up every year, and we're a staple right there with those guys. And the other thing is, with the St. Mary's, they had all summer to prepare for us. And a little inside, Mike Coyne, the head coach, used to be my defensive coordinator on my 2017 that we went to the state finals down in Giant Stadium. So, he had all summer to prepare. He came out in the defense. He did a great job scheming us up. And so we had to get together at halftime and figure it out a little bit. And we decided what the best route to go with. And that's what happened in the second half. I'll give Mike credit. He did a great job with those kids. And we decided that, defensively, that we weren't going to let that running back. They're big up front, and they run the ball. And we said we might be a little weaker in the pass defense, but we weren't going to let that kid get any runs over 20. And I think we held him to he didn't have any runs over 20 yards, and that was important for us. A great back like that might rip off a couple of 9 yards, 12 yards. Hey, then you got to regroup, get back in there, and that's what we did. And so that was our plan on defense. They did a great job.
Yeah, you're a victim of your own success. Your coaching tree is only going to grow. So you got to have one playbook for this guy, one for the other guy. Leave a couple pages out when you run up against somebody you know that well.
When you do this stuff, and then you have these audibles, and it's not what I'm calling this stuff that in the heat of battle, and that word comes out of my mouth. It's been coming out for 20 years, and the guy standing right across. He's been with me. He was with me for like 3 to 4 years, and so you got to change all that language, and and the kids wonder what the hell you changing it for. And,
right.
So it gets a little complicated. It really does, and but give Mike Coyne. He's going to do a great job. He's from St. Mary's, and he really he's grassroots down there, so he's going to do a fine job.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt about it. Bri, what do you got?
Hey, Coach, yeah, obviously Jimmy mentioned Barton of Nevada had a really good game. Hey, one of the other comments that I'll say that Coach Gibbs mentioned early on the show is about the junior programs really being the success of the high school program. So it looks like you guys both have it figured out there, and keep up the good work. I want to ask you talk about your defense, some of your guys. I know Matt McElroy had a big game, double-digit tackles, and you had to stop their run. So tell us about the defense a little bit.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, my defensive coordinator, Walter Gonzalez, did a beautiful job. We came up with a plan where, like I said, Matt McElroy had I think 15, 16 solo tackles. He was all over the place. So what we did was we have 2 nice D tackles, Jackson Brown and Tyler Zadok, and and Emmett McElroy is another McElroy brother, and Alex Molina, the 4 down linemen, kept the linebackers free. Because Coach Coyne is St. Mary's is big up front, and they're pulling and trapping, and they're moving on every play. They're really active, and he does a great job up front with them. So our linebackers and our safeties, we wanted to keep those guys free and just let them come run through and make tackles, and we wanted to gang tackle that kid because, man, he, one blink, he's gone. And, so we were scared of him. We were a little weaker to the pass. But they didn't really throw the ball too much in the preseason, and so we said, hey, we got to be good at something. So we said, let's stop this take away what they do best, and we tried to take away that run, and they did a great job. Matt McElroy, he's all over the field.
Yeah, well, it's a good. If you got to pick one of the two options when you're playing St. Mary's, best to try to stop the run first. With the Gale sweep, when they throw the quarterback as the lead blocker, they pitch it and he's running.
Everybody's coming. When you explain it to your team, when you put it on the ink board, the ink board, and you do it in practice, they look at you. I said, hey man, they've been running this for 30 years. It's coming.
Yep.
Get ready.
No doubt about it. So I'm just looking at your schedule here. St. Mary's a good win for you on the road. It gets no easier here. You visit Pompton Lakes next week. This is a good test for your team here. Week 2, week 3, going forward. The NJIC with the playoffs, every game is important, all that stuff. Just give us a quick preview of Pompton Lakes out of the venerable institution that is Hirschfield Park.
Hey, listen, I love going up there. That's a beautiful setting for high school football. That is
I
really
agree.
That's one of the best places to go, and we enjoy it. It's gonna be up there, and Coach Mahoney. That guy's got all the rings. He's got 3 in a row. He's got 1 in his first year. He's got 4 rings. He came on the same tenure as mine, and so they have a lot of history up there. So they're prideful kids. They're tough kids, and they're big up front. Real big up front and physical, and their defense is very strong, and so it should be a great game. And we're excited about going up there. We have a bye, so they're going to play Saddlebrook this week, and then we have 1 week off before we play them. So hopefully we can get a little healthy and have another good game plan and go up there. And it's great atmosphere. It's as good as it gets in Group 1 football.
Yeah, no doubt. Jimmy, you got another one?
Yeah, one more question, Coach. Obviously, your staple has been running the ball with the power running game for a long time. But I think the interesting thing and is the exciting thing to you guys is your development of your quarterback, Ryan Picketing. Big kid, 6'5" kid, can really swing the ball around. And I think the ability to not only run the ball but pass the ball is really going to help you this year.
Oh yeah, no doubt. We got the whole playbook open, and. He's exciting. We're play action, so you'll see guys running wide open because they're trying to take away our run. But we can throw it over the top. We got some 6'3" wide receivers across the board: Reese Farley, Matt McElroy, and Nick Klein. And so we got those 3 wide receivers. And with Brian Pickness, he was in the state meet of champions with the hurdles. This kid can move. So now we're running. That power read option stuff with the quarterback and the faking, and we're putting more in his hands, and that's only going to help us. And like I said the other day, we were going to throw it a little bit to Mr. Coyne. He decided that he was going to play us, with 4 DBs back there, 2 safeties, and so we said, hey, we got to run at it, But in the preseason so far. We've had pretty good success throwing the ball. So, I've been doing this thing a long time. So I tell my kids, hey, we're trying to win football games. We're not trying to get stats here. So if we got to run it 30 times, we're going to run it 30 times. If we got to throw it, we'll throw it. We're just trying to win.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job of it. Billy Wilde, the head coach of the New Milford Fighting Knights over there. Thanks for joining us this week on the Monday Morning Quarterback. And, we're big fans, so we're going to stay in touch. We're going to keep in contact with you. We're going to follow this run here, probably, as you try to make another run here to MetLife Stadium. So thanks for coming on, and best of luck with this season.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, interesting stuff there with the 2 head coaches of teams who are off to perfect starts to the 2017 high school football season here. Now let's just go back to the conversation that we started at the beginning of the show. We talked about some of the games we were at. And Brian, you mentioned I was in Old Tappan. I was in Hillsdale on Saturday for the Old Tappan Pascack Valley matchup, and everything said it was going to be close. Pascack Valley played Riverdale right down to the nub in the opening week. Old Tappan took care of business in its first week, but you figured they would get a tougher test. Old Tappan really just, I hate to say it was no contest, but they just owned the line of scrimmage and dominated the game. 42-6 was the final score. The 6 points, as Brian, you mentioned earlier in the show, came when the JVs were in the game. Actually, on the final play of regulation, a running scoreboard was not what you expected to see when Old Tappan and Pascack Valley got together. But Jimmy, I'll go to you because Old Tappan, one of those teams that year after year, think of everything they've lost over the past. Forget even the Fuller brothers, one in the NFL and one starting as a sophomore in the Ohio State defensive secondary. But just a lot of other really solid guys who have gone on to play college football. Eric Slater, James Kelly, Jed Downey. The list goes on and on over the years. And yet here they are again looking like probably, through 2 weeks of the season, the best public school team in Bergen County.
Yeah, no question. Coach Dunn, really, I have a lot of respect for him. I mean, when you first see them come out, the first thing that hits you when they come down from the school to the field is, certainly a lack of numbers the last 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
So, it's not like they have 70, 80 kids. They usually have around 40 kids. And I'll tell you what, they lose a lot of talented kids. This year they return most of that offensive line, so that's a great place to start. And that's where they've been dominating their opponents up front. But I think Coach Dunn does a tremendous job of gearing his team towards his talent. He doesn't try to put a square peg into a round hole. He'll adjust his system to what kind of players he has, and I think that's a mark of a great coach. And I think they might be, as of right now, the best public school team in the area.
No doubt. And so their offensive line, 2 Northvale kids on there, Mike Mancuso and Scott Essman, the center. He played well this past week. Chris Eichler, another returning starter up front. So those 3 guys add a lot of beef, a lot of experience. And it's opened things up. I mean, and then you have playmakers. Aiden Bilali caught a long touchdown. Well, set up a touchdown run. Marquez Antonori, the running back, had a 75-yard touchdown run. Final play of the first half, Sal DiBenedetto catches a ball with about 7 seconds left to go. Half the coaching staff is screaming, go out of bounds, get another play. The other half is screaming, go ahead, try to score. Sal's running, DiBenedetto's running with his back to the scoreboard. No way he could know actually how much time was left. So he cut it back across the field, scores on a 49-yard touchdown pass. Last play of the first half made it 21-0 and really put it to bed. I caught up with both Sal DiBenedetto and Brian Dunn after the game. Let's go with Sal's interview first. Here it is.
I mean, not that you guys didn't have the game well in hand when it happened, but just talk about that last play of the first half, which really just slammed the door on it.
Yeah, I mean, that play wasn't really meant for me. I was sort of a safety valve on that play, but everyone was going deep on the deep routes, and I was sort of stayed underneath. And when I got it, I saw open grass, so I just ran. And I got some good blocks by Marquez. He blocked, I think, 2 kids on that play. They made a wide open lane for me to get into the end zone.
Half the people were screaming, go out of bounds. Yeah. The other half were screaming, score. What were you thinking?
I honestly had no idea how much time was left on the clock. And I saw open grass, so once again, I just took it. I didn't really want to go out of bounds because I didn't know if the time was expired or not.
How about this start to the season? I mean, I know you guys had high expectations, but to be off and flying like this is pretty impressive.
It's really good. I mean, we expected this to happen. We put in the work every day, starting August 11th. We worked off in the film room, in the weight room, and on the practice field, so we expected nothing less.
All right, good stuff there with Sal. And then Brian Dunn's interview, surrounded by a gaggle of reporters here. Here's what Brian Dunn had to say after the game.
I mean, we have good experience up front. We have some good size kids who worked real hard in the off season, and that's what a game like this is. You're out in the heat early in the year and showing the experience and just toughness. They've been there before. They have some young kids playing. They're going to be real good, soon. But we just had a little edge in just terms of physicality and experience today.
And balance on offense. You can run it, you can throw it. You can get inside yards, outside yards.
Yeah, and try to take advantage of what's there. And we're confident in putting the ball in any kid on the team's hands when we're out there. There's 6 guys who I feel like anytime we're on the field we can get the ball to and they can do something with it.
All right, switching gears from the Old Tappan game, Brian Carr might not have been able to get to a game when it was being played, but that never stops the head Husky from sniffing out a story. Brian, why don't you take it from here? You have supplied us with audio for this week's show. What happened? How did it come about? And then set up the clip.
So, on Friday night, as I mentioned earlier, I was following the game on Twitter, the Dumont game, and, one of my favorite guys right now is Stephen Capone, who I mentioned earlier, stood out in video during last year, I noticed. But anyway, so I just got back on Saturday, so I was thinking about why not. I did that to our friend Ryan Botto last year. I hit him cold. I never told him I was going to ask him, and just asked right after they won. And anyway, so I was back home for a day before I flew out to Minnesota. And so I contacted him and said, hey, would you want to interview? And he said, sure. So first I was going to meet at Dunkin' Donuts, and I said, wait a minute, why don't I meet him down at the field? So I did a few laps at the field, and he came down, and then we met and talked. And so really, my intro to that is I mentioned, I call him the Sackmaster. He really stuffs the stats, too, as I mentioned before. I mean, he's had three sacks last game, 7 tackles, two pancake blocks, and a fumble recovery. I mean, the kid stands out, he hustles. That's what I noticed. I look for kids that really stand out and make a difference. So,
come on. You look for kids from Dumont. This year it's Stephen Capone. And coming hot on the heels of the 40-6 win over Cliffside Park, here is Brian Carr's interview with Stephen Capone.
So, Stephen, big game here at Dumont last Friday night, 40-7 victory over Cliffside Park. Tell me about the game, your thoughts on the game and team and coach's first big win.
Yeah, well, going into the game, we knew that Cliffside Park line was pretty big, and watching them against Bergenfield, they were able to hold themselves, even though there was a big gap. But going into the game, we knew that to win, we had to push the line and do that, and I think that we did a great job with that. And Ryan Cacciatafaro, being as versatile as he is, being able to lead us into this victory helped us very, very much.
Right. Ryan's a senior as well, right?
Yeah, Ryan's a senior.
Then I like our guy, Brendan
Cervantes.
Cervantes, good kid.
Yeah.
He also had a TD late.
He had a big touchdown run at the end. I think it was 60-plus yards for him.
Good for him. Wow. So was Coach Bird excited after the game?
Yeah, I mean, getting the first victory it's the hardest win, and we wanted to give that to Coach because he does everything he can for us, and we respect him so much, and we were so excited when he became our coach just because we loved him so much, and we're so excited that we were able to give him his first win.
Yeah, he's been coaching since you've been here, right?
Yeah.
Well, 4 years or 3 years he's been here coaching?
Yeah, he's been here for a long time.
Right. So we talk about other guys. So I have you for stats. I'm looking at 7 tackles. We have 3 sacks, 2 pancake blocks, and a fumble recovery. So what did you do, or what was motivated you to really come out? I mean, you play tough all games, but anything special today?
Having my brother in from Granada, it gave me a little motivation to give him a good game, and I'm happy that I was able to perform that good. But I just look to lead the team and show them what it's like to do good in the game, and I want everyone to be able to do great in the game. And I really think our line really stepped up in this game. I mean, Jake Rogers, you hear on the announcement, Jake Rogers with the tackle, and I think he's really stepping up to be a captain.
He's a captain as well?
Yeah,
Jake?
he's a captain.
Good. So is there you mentioned being a captain. So I know you're usually a quiet kind of guy. I saw you at baseball, and I'm just saying that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. But have you done anything different? What do you do to be a leader now as you're a captain? Is there something you do? Do you talk to the guys before the game, on the field, sideline?
I mean, when you're on the field, you really have to step up and calm the situations. I mean, there was a lot of penalties going on in the game, and you have to calm the team down on the field, and everyone's getting rambunctious and not knowing what to do. And you just have to get them together and calm them down and tell them, guys, there's this game still going on. You have to realize what the situation is and calm them down, and then once the game goes on, they'll go on with it. Right,
because it's one play. You have to regroup. It happened. It's over.
Yeah.
Let's go. We have you make a mistake, whatever. Next play. You mentioned your brother, Eddie. I was going to ask you, who are your role models? What is there somebody that you look up to? Is it your brother or somebody else?
I mean, I always looked up to my brother, watching him on the field. I mean, he never really got to play his senior year because of an injury, but he was always a big force on the field, and even today, he still tells me what I did wrong in that game, and he always shows me what to do the next play or how to get better the next play. Okay. And I just love hearing everything that he has to say.
Yeah. And then one of my last questions, college. What are you looking at college? You've got a little less than a year coming. Do you think about college, looking at college?
I mean, I have hopes for college to play.
Trying to play football?
Yeah, trying to play football in college, and we'll see how this year goes, and hopefully I'll be able to play in football.
Anyway, thanks a lot from NorthJerseySports.com.
Wow, interesting stuff there, Bri, with your brand new favorite player this year, Stephen Capone. Way to hustle, way to get the interview, and it's good. I mean, I like it. We're anybody can cover the big boys it's nice to cover the whole scene, especially when Dumont is involved and you are involved with Dumont. So good. I said we were going to get to some of the parochial stuff here, and let's touch on it quickly because, we've talked about a lot of different things tonight. But, Jimmy, Mike Quick said it last week. We've talked about it here, and to be honest, in my humble opinion, the non-public football playing powers, well, this is a mess that we got here.
Yeah, it's certainly a mess. Bergen Catholic went out to Mater Dei, who's, the consensus number one team in the country, and unfortunately for them, it was a long night. Don Bosco took on St. Francis from Maryland, another top 25 team in the country, lost 27-0. So, I think as the state of parochial football, non-public football right now is, I think these teams are not, as Mike Quick has said, are not as strong as they've been maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago. For whatever reason, the hands dipping in the pot, more teams, more, players spread around. But right now, unfortunately, if you listen to that game, the Mater Dei game, the announcers out there in California had a field day with New Jersey football. So, I think New Jersey's parochials are licking their wounds right now. And the one thing that I don't agree with is when coaches play those games and want to say after the game that, oh, well, it's okay, we're going back to New Jersey. It's the old, former Jet coach, you play the game and win the game. So
right.
If you're going to, in your mind, if it is nothing more than a scrimmage to get you ready for a game, for the regular season, why travel 3,000 miles or why travel to Florida or whatever. So, you know what? We'll see. The parochial 4 champion this year might have 3, 4, 5 losses. It's going to be very, very interesting.
It certainly will. Maybe. Go ahead, Brian.
St. Joe's had a really good game, though. They not, Del Barton is not at the top, group of the best non-public, but they did whoop up on Del Barton, and Nick Patty had a good game. He was like 12 for 19 and 190 yards. He had 4 TDs. So, so at least there's somebody who's competing within the state and winning games.
DePaul
didn't play. I'll make a comment.
Yeah, DePaul had a good week. They didn't play. DePaul didn't play.
Yeah, but they did. They were down watching Rutgers win. Hey, let me mention one other former St. Peter kid, Brandon Wimbush. If you guys hadn't noticed, he had 21 for 207 yards and 4 touchdowns for Notre Dame, beating up on BC up in Boston. I watched a lot of that game. He looked pretty good.
I did see that, and I also saw that Jonathan Lewis got his first start for Rutgers this week, and people going a little bit nuts because they whacked Morgan State. I mean, listen, there's nobody rooting more for Jonathan Lewis to turn around the Rutgers football program than I am. I mean, Jersey boy, Jersey school, all that stuff, but let's put the brakes on it a little bit, man. That was Morgan State. We're talking about the team that lost to Eastern Michigan. So before we anoint Jonathan Lewis as the number 1 draft pick, I wish him continued good luck, and I really hope the fortunes change for the Scarlet Knights. But I am not going to go gaga over Morgan State. Quick, Jimmy, where is Morgan State?
It's a good question. I do not know.
I don't know either. It's somewhere in the town of Morgan in the state of somewhere. Anyway, enough of the madness. Tune in here next week for all things Dumont football. We will continue to follow the Huskies and all other teams running around here on the North Jersey high school football scene. We'll see you next week on the Monday Morning Quarterback.
Follow the leader.